Hi, in this video we're looking at human resources as a management process. Now, human resources is broken up really into four steps. So we're going to look at each step individually here. Now, step one is the acquisition stage. So actually um, getting employees in a nutshell. Now, we've got three stages here as well. So we've got the planning stage, which is developing the strategies to meet the business's future staffing needs. So, what do we actually need as a business in order to continue to grow and become efficient? So, the business first, though, must determine the exact nature of the job before it can recruit the right person to it. And that then leads to recruitment, which is finding and attracting the right people to apply for a job using things like advertisements, websites, agencies, word of mouth. And this can really fall with two sections as well. So we've got internal recruitment, which comes from people within the business who might be asked to step up into a different role or a leadership role, and external recruitment. So finding people outside of the organization to come into the business. And then one of the other stages of acquisition is then selecting. So the employer chooses the most suitable applicant for a vacancy. So they need to identify the skills, qualifications, and experience of each applicant, then relating them to the skills, qualifications, and experience needed in the advertisement and the job and the job specification that they started with, in order to achieve the most close match. And then they'll make their choice and say, well, this person X as opposed to person Y fits the criteria better. Step two in human resources is development. So once they've identified what they need, advertised, and then selected the best person for the job, they need to then develop the people that they have. So this is really aimed at improving an employee's skills and abilities, which is necessary for their personal development and for the business growth. Now, they do this with the intention that an employee will remain with the business for a certain number of years. So, if an organization were to spend thousands and thousands of dollars training an employee in a certain, certain software or a certain machine, the intention is that that person will then stay with the organization long enough where the organization can then see a return on the investment in that person, either through productivity or if that person then trains other people to do the job as well. Now, this then leads to step three in human resources, which is maintenance. So, how do you keep the employees you have? So, this is the provision of working conditions to encourage those people to stay with the business. So one way they do it is through contracts. And now there's three contracts that are most commonly used. So we've got awards, which cover everyone in the same industry around the entire country. So whether you're a retail worker in Sydney or a retail worker in Perth, you'll receive the same conditions. Another step up from that, though, is enterprise agreements. Now, this is an award that is then improved on, if you want to look at it that way, but you can't actually offer in an enterprise agreement anything less than is in an award. And one of the other differences between an enterprise agreement and an award is an enterprise agreement is something that is developed between an employer and the workplace itself or the enterprise. So a retail shop in Sydney might realise that the cost of living in Sydney is far greater than the cost of living in Perth. So rather than have their employees in an award, which covers everyone in Australia, they might have them in an enterprise agreement, which offers them extra benefits. So an increase in pay or better working conditions or more flexible hours, etc. Another type of another type of contract is a common law contract, and this is more so for people in managerial positions, where it's more of a contract drawn up between the workplace and an individual, and it also builds in certain safeguards for both parties. So it might be based on things like performance or sales increases. So, for example, the vice president of sales, for example, might be on a common law contract, and it's stipulated in the contract that for them to access their bonuses and their extra pay, they need to have met X, Y, Z target sales markets or sales goals. And if they don't, they might be in breach of their contract, and the business may be able to avoid paying them out. Now, another way of maintaining employees is to make sure that you keep the national employment standards. Now, there are 10 standards that all employees are given around Australia. Now, they're built into awards, but as I said, in enterprise agreements and in common law contracts, you can offer more but not less than what's in an award. So those national employment standards are guaranteed. And they include things like minimum working hours, minimum leave entitlements, community service, things such as jury duty and SES membership. If you're a member of that, you have the ability to go and undertake your job without being disadvantaged in your workplace. Also things such as how many sick days you can take, etc. And businesses must also keep legislations such as the Fair Work Act of 2009, or the Equal Employment Opportunity Acts, Anti-Discrimination Acts, Workplace Health and Safety. You must maintain a safe and comfortable working environment for your employees, and you cannot discriminate against them based on their religion, based on their race, based on their color, their sexual preference. And the final step in human resource management is the separation. So the ending of the employment relationship. Now we've gone in a full circle here. We've gone from identifying what we need and employing them, to training them, to giving them the money and the benefits, the monetary, non-monetary rewards to stay, and then the final step, which is when they leave. So there's different ways that this can happen as well. There's voluntary, which is when an employee chooses to leave the business of their own free will, so through things like retirement or resignation, so they want to leave the business, or they've reached a certain age where they can now access the government pension, don't have to work anymore. There's also involuntary, where when an employee is asked to leave against their will, such as dismissal, so they've been fired, or retrenchment, where there's really not enough work for them to justify continue being paid. There's no other place for them in the business. They can't be retrained for some reason, so they're asked to leave. Now, redundancy is both voluntary and involuntary, in that people can be asked to leave and take a payout, but if not enough people leave to help the business either cut costs, then the business then forces people to leave. Now, I mentioned dismissal, and this is based on unfair dismissal is based on when an employee is asked to leave the business for discriminatory reasons. So, for example, their pregnancy, their religion, their disability, their age, their sexual preference, their sex, their color, their race, if they belong to a trade union or if they don't belong to a trade union, if they've been away because they've been sick for a legitimate reason. You can't discriminate against people for that, and you cannot dismiss them for those reasons. Unfair dismissal is not the case when it's performance based, where they've been given enough warning to improve their performance and they haven't. Then it becomes, an involuntary decision for the person to leave, where they might be asked to leave the business. But in that case, it is not seen as unfair and reasonable. So I really hope this brief introduction to human resource management as a management process has given you enough information to gather some sort of understanding of how it operates. Thank you.